It's time to play everyone's favourite game. How far can I get through a video before the dog interrupts? I'm going to say not very far, is my guess. Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews and to another episode in my series where I am reviewing and recapping every single book in the Animorphs series, but not the spin-offs. Not doing it. Today we are looking at this fairly spectacular cover as we launch into Animorphs 27, The Exposed. As you'll see from this did I mention spectacular cover, this is a Rachel book. And the little hint that we get as to what might be happening in this is they thought they'd seen it all. They were wrong. And this excites me because after the weirdness of last month's video, I really did think I'd seen it all. But there we go. This was written by Laura Batyani Weiss, I'm not sure, whose website is no longer active. So Laura, I hope you're doing okay. We'll be encountering a couple more books by Laura in this series, so here's hoping this is a good one. I already know it's a good one, I've already read it, I'm reading off notes, but at the time when I wrote this, I was hoping it would be a good one. We open with Rachel on the balance beam trying to reclaim some of her old love of gymnastics. After filling us in on the broad strokes of the Yik conflict we've been experiencing for 27 videos, she remarks that it's kind of hard to get excited about feats on the balance beam when you could just morph into an animal and do it like 10 times better. Bless you. I can't help myself. It's like I'm addicted or something. Addicted to defeating the Yik invaders. And did I said it wouldn't be long. Hi! This does seem to be something of a theme with Rachel. I wonder if we're going to dig more into that in this book. The gymnast follows up on his act of heroism by asking her out on a date. He was cute. Better still, he was human. The bar is so low. But to be fair, this guy won't have to demorph halfway through the movie to avoid being trapped in human form when he would rather be a hawk, so I can see why her bar would be about there. But she rejects the suitor and storms off to the changing rooms. I didn't like the way I was feeling. I didn't like that I'd reacted. I didn't like the moment of hesitation, the moment when I considered the fact that I was the only girl in school whose, I guess, boyfriend was, how should I put it, a bird? Once again, this series just really captures true teenage problems. If gymnastics didn't work to make Rachel feel like a normal person, maybe her other hobby will. Shopping. So to the mall we go. While shopping, she spots Cassie. There's a moment of, how could you not tell me you were going shopping? But it turns out she's just buying a present for her mum when the two of them spot Eric the Chi, android, outside of the Gap. This would be a reasonably normal time were it not for the fact that Eric is flickering. His hologram appears to be malfunctioning. They can't let the people in the mall, many of whom might be controllers, know about Eric, so they casually sidle up to him just to say, hey Eric, my guy, you're flickering. How to hide a malfunctioning android. Drag him into the nearest Spencer's Gifts, pop him in the corner with the strobe lights and hope people think he's an optical illusion. Erica starts moving really slowly and eventually stops moving altogether, by which point they've managed to sort of shove him in the corner of the shop. We step back. The strobe light flashed. Eric. Android. Eric. Android. 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 Well, this is not ideal. In order to ward off the potential for Eric to just be purchased, Rachel slaps a $5,000 price tag on him. Actually, my approximate value in current US dollars would be well into billions. Ugh, imagine literally knowing your self-worth. I can't tell if that would make me feel really good about myself, or it would be a capitalism nightmare. I'm gonna guess capitalism nightmare. Rachel urges Cassie to guard Eric while she goes to find Jake because this is a problem that requires more Animorphs to be involved. What do I do if some controller sees Eric and realises what he is? Protect yourself, I said. I met Eric's frozen gaze. You're number one, Cassie. Push comes to shove. Give up, Eric. I mean, he's right there. Bit rude. Accurate, but rude. Rachel phones up Jake, but who should answer but her other cousin, Tom. Tom the controller. We've not featured him for a while, but it's nice to have him back just to remind us the constant threat we are living in. He passes her over to Jake, but obviously they need to be incredibly subtle to not give away the plan. I can't believe you forgot, I said, lowering my voice but trying to sound annoyed. You were supposed to meet me and Cassie at the mall a half hour ago. We've been waiting in front of Spencer's for you. Thank goodness Jake has more than one brain cell and he gets the message pretty quickly. With that part of the plan done, Rachel heads into the Gap. She's not stopping for more retail therapy. This is part of the plan. She's trying to disguise an android. She gets back to Cassie, who is desperately trying to convince customers in the Spencer's Gifts that Eric is some sort of kitchen android that will be coming at some point in the future. This is just a display model, guys. No, you can't purchase him. While arguing about the fact that Rachel has purchased Eric some designer underwear, which he definitely does not need as part of this disguise, Cassie and Rachel are interrupted by the shop clerk, who demands to know, why are they there? I called my manager. There is no such thing as a kitchen droid. What are you doing here? I'm calling mall security. But swooping into the rescue. Well, walking into the rescue, disguised as a gorilla or a person in a gorilla suit, promoting a new Kong movie, is Marco, who, at Rachel's instruction, knocks the clerk unconscious. probably fine. After confirming that he is in fact still alive, they dress up Eric in Rachel's bought disguise. They pop a Bill Clinton mask on Eric and carry him out of the mall. Fortunately, there was a big sale on at the department store, so not that many people noticed. At least, that was my explanation then. Oh my, I sense plot to come. The weirdness continues as no one but them is on the bus to see the gorilla carrying the android, and then no one except them is on the streets. You know what, Jake said grimly. When Marco and I got to the mall, there were electricians' trucks all over the place. I heard one of the workers say something about all the surveillance cameras going dead. I didn't worry about it then. This is all very fishy, particularly since we know that the dressing room in the Gap is one of the entrances to the Yeerk pool. All very fishy. And the cover's got a squid on it. Puns. But the question is someone protecting Eric, or are they building up to something bigger? Just as Rachel's having another crisis about her bird boyfriend, Tobias does in fact show up, just to let them know they aren't being followed. And they get to Eric's house and find that his fake android father's hologram is also malfunctioning. So it's not just Eric, I said. No, Mr. King said without moving. All the chi have been immobilized, holographic emitters down, motor centers down. Logic centers, speech synthesizers, and ChiNet all functioning normally. ChiNet is Chi Internet, I don't think that needs explaining. Do they have any idea what's causing it? Well, it could be that someone has turned off or on some of the controls in the Permalite, the people who made the cheese, ship, which they hid deep in the ocean where no humans would ever be able to get to it because the pressure's too intense. The atmospheric pressure will crush a human to the size of a guinea pig. Cover is starting to make sense now. According to Mr. King, reversing the glitch would be easy, it's just the getting to the computer part that's hard. So, they need to not expose the fact that the chi are there, because if the Yeerks find out the chi are there, bad things will happen. There are two chi who are at high risk of being exposed. The first works as a janitor in a nuclear research facility. When his hologram failed, he locked himself in the safe the facility uses to store the radioactive material. So he's safe until 10, when the shift changes and they need to do something with the radioactive material. Unsure, but there's no way they're going to get to the facility to be able to get him out. The other is a woman called Lourdes, who is currently posing as a homeless person in order to track Yeerk activity. She's been sleeping in an abandoned building. Abandoned except that half the building is being used to store stolen goods. It's sort of run by a fence named Strake, Mr. King continued. We suspect he's a controller. She's hiding in a closet and we have information that there's a police raid about to happen. Now, as we know, the police have been infiltrated by the Yeerks, so this could be disastrous. And that raid's in 20 minutes. Despite being told by the Chi that this is a bad idea, the Animorphs leap into action to try and save Lourdes. So let me get this straight, Marco said. We have to rescue a paralysed Chi from a stolen goods warehouse before the controllers get her. Then we have to dive down to the bottom of the ocean, find the Permalite ship, somehow get inside it and turn off the signal before 10 o'clock tonight. So the Yeerks don't get the Chi in the safe at the nuclear waste facility. Is that pretty much it? Or do we have to discover the Fountain of Youth and come up with a low-fat cookie that tastes as good as Mrs. Fields too? At this point I would believe it. Some of that could be plot seeding for future books. To top it off, Mr. King lets them know that the Yeerks have probably also picked up the signal from the Permalite ship, so maybe down there waiting for them when they get there. They've left so speedily they don't actually have Axe with them to keep track of the 2-hour timer, but it's probably a good thing Axe hasn't really seen the more bad aspects of humanity yet. They land with 5 minutes before the raid and get ready to go as quickly as possible. They've gone pretty standard powerful morphs, except that Jake has gone Rhino? No, yes, Jake has gone Rhino and Cassie is going for Elephant, because at this point they really just need power. They hear the police shout, they're out of time, the raid has started. So they charge through the bushes, hearing gunfire outside the building. They knock down the wall and stampede through, quickly turning this warehouse into wreckage, being shot in the meantime. Rachel calls out for Cassie, who's in wolf morph, and Cassie lets her know she's been shot, but she's hiding under the stairs with Lourdes. She can't move her legs, and there's no way for her to demorph with this many people around. Marco's been stabbed, Jake's almost been taken by the people outside, and Rachel gets mad. First up, she deals with the guy with the gun. Suddenly, there he was, crouched in front of the closet door under the stairs. He was dirty, skinny, hollow-eyed, and he saw me too, aimed his gun right at my head. And a light, he sneered and pulled the trigger. Despite being in pain from being shot in the face, Rachel thwacks the guy out of the way with her trunk, and hearing some shouts from the police confirms that that is in fact Strake. So fully confirmed, Strake is a controller. What about the Rhino? He's wrecking my squad car. Someone grab that gorilla before he rips the bar lights off my patrol car. Don't worry about them right now. We've got animal control and some vet from the Gardens Wildlife Park coming down. Let them deal with it. Just stay back. Fantastic. Cassie's mum is on the way and that lady packs a tranquilizer gun. Tobias and Axe Axe to the rescue, Rachel finally manages to get the closet door open and grabs Cassie, telling her to demorph as quickly as possible, because she's kind of on the outs. And get arrested? Cassie laughed weakly. No way, my mother would kill me. Priorities. Marco, having escaped the police outside, comes in and grabs Wolf Cassie, letting them know that Jake has managed to escape outside because Hawk Tobias grabbed one of the guns and is just flying around causing chaos. It's a very different version of the birds. Stumbling, we turned in the tight space and came face to face with a cop. He was sweating, shaking. I couldn't blame him, but his expression changed. I saw a new fear, and then a familiar hatred. Andalites, he said. Sneering, the cop raised his pistol and pulled the trigger. Lots of shooting in this one so far. Marco and Cassie are hit, and Rachel is in such a situation where she can't actually move because she'll either be shot to or crush her friends. Difficult decisions to be made. Marco, Cassie, I shouted frantically. Nothing. If they were dead, this guy had killed them, and now he was going to kill me and take Lourdes, and the Yirks would brutalise the Chi, grow stronger with their technology, become even harder to beat. My muscles trembled and hate blackened my heart. He'd killed my best friend. He might even kill me. Fine, but he wouldn't get the Chi, because I'd kill him first. Picturing dramatic music over that whole speech, by the way. Rachel lifts up Lourdes to use her as a blunt weapon. I'm sure she won't mind. And then she spots a tiny furry black and white creature, and we learn what Morph Axe has gone for. Skunk. Axe sprays the controller and Rachel knocks him down into the basement. We do see that he's still breathing, so she's not a murderer, but violence has been done. Tobias swoops in to say that the animal control van is here, so they need to move because they will get tranquilized if Cassie's mum gets the chance. Still dealing with her head wound that she currently has, Rachel grabs Cassie and Marco. Marco is just about still alive and manages to thought speak some sass. Cassie's heart is thankfully still beating. Swinging the wounded Animorphs and Lourdes onto her back, they storm out of the warehouse to reveal chaos, people darting everywhere. Tobias, still dive-bombing with a gun in his talons, was trying to keep Cassie's mum from getting a clear shot with her dart gun. Just something about that visual is just wonderful to me. She grabs Axe, who is still in skunk morph, and points him at the various law enforcement people like the world's most horrifying water pistol, and they run past as the warehouse is about to collapse. Jake veers right to hide in a parking lot while Rachel heads left. That's going to be mirrored for you, but it's fine. She goes into the junkyard so she can hide Lourdes there amongst the other scrap. Bit rude, but fair enough, until they manage to turn the signal off. As they get through the gates, blood loss finally takes its toll, and Rachel collapses, demorphing just in the nick of time. The thing about these books is you can basically almost kill your characters in every single conflict. It gets very intense. So, to confirm, now all that's left to do is dive 15,000 feet down into the cold, dark ocean, deeper than we'd ever gone before, deeper than a dolphin or a hammerhead shark could dive, up against an enemy that couldn't be fought. The deadly crushing pressure. Simple stuff. Since they can't risk Cassie's parents finding them and throwing off the plan, they meet in the meadow. Obviously, the current issue is none of their current morphs can withstand this kind of pressure. They rule out whale because they just can't go deep enough. They rule out stealing a diving bell because, let's be real, it was a bit of an impractical plan to begin with. Looks like a wet one, Tobias said glumly. I'm so totally not interested in being Captain Nemo. And that inspires Cassie because that book may indeed be the answer to the question of what morph they need to go for. We've all seen the cover, so we know what the answer is. It's giant squid. But how to get a giant squid? Because the only animals that dive deep enough to get to the kind of top of where the giant squids go are sperm whales. There aren't any sperm whales in captivity. They will not be able to acquire sperm whales. They can't do anything. There's no way out. They give up and go home. My neighbourhood looked normal. Kids playing street hockey, adults sweeping driveways, gossiping about the gorilla who'd been at the mall. Rachel runs home, worried that Jake and Marco have been in some kind of ambush when they got home. She calls Jake, no answer. Marco, likewise. Her family pop their news on, and there is some news about this gorilla loose at the mall, and about the various wildlife that were at the warehouse, but there's no camera footage. There is still the loose end of that bus driver, but no time to think about that, because next on the news, a beached whale. A sperm whale, in fact. This was no coincidence. Someone or something wanted us out there bad and was willing to sacrifice a whale to do it. At this point on my notes, I've written, golly gee, I wonder what omnipotent asshole it could be. We'll find out. She calls Cassie, who actually picks up, hooray, and they agree in fairly subtle code that they're going to go and acquire the whale that night. Rachel heads on out and morphs Eagle. First she checks on the boys. They're all fine. They're all alive. And they all get into bird morph and meet up. Jake lets them know that when he was at home, he heard that the Sharing are sending volunteers to help out with the whale. We're being manipulated here, Jake said, but not by the Yirks. Not even they can arrange for a sperm whale to conveniently beach itself. They could shoot one, but talk a live one into beaching? Not their style. So who? Who goes to all the trouble to get the permalite ship, use it to mess with the Chi, and then hand us the means to get down there, Tobias wondered. Not the Yirks. Not the Alarmist, not his style. So who? I really felt like it was the Alarmist, but I am completely willing to meet a new omnipotent asshole. They demorph behind a dune and they all agree this is pretty likely to be a trap. But with that in mind, they don't need to all morph whale, just a couple of them do. Rachel volunteers, but Jake insists on drawing straws. So Rachel and Tobias have a private thought-speak moment, and Tobias reluctantly tells her which the short straws are, because hawk vision. But not until picking a short straw for himself as well. Everyone's favourite slightly dysfunctional couple are off to acquire a whale. Cassie and I started down the dune. Jake grabbed my arm and pulled me aside for a private word. "Don't you ever do that again," he said, far angrier than I'd suspected. "It's your fault Tobias is going. Remember that next time you decide to make fools of the rest of us." Angry leadership from Jake, but I think it's what was needed. They head on over to the whale, who is having a really rotten time. Understatement of the century. I clenched my hands into fists, dug my nails into my palms. "I am going to hurt whoever did this," I whispered. "Oh, I am going to hurt whoever did this," I whispered. "I'll help," Cassie said. So they join a group of people who are hurling buckets of water onto the whale. As a biologist makes them all stop so they can draw the whale's blood, Rachel acquires the DNA. There's a whole faff. Okay, they're in danger of being caught. Tobias's talon gets caught in the whale, so they have to all morph seagull and kind of act like they're chasing the hawk away, but also semi-rescue Tobias. It doesn't go particularly well. They're not super subtle about it. Having managed to deal with that and vaguely not get caught, I mean, the controllers probably know it was them. They've seen a red-tailed hawk one too many times. But they flap over the ocean, and Rachel has some deep, dark thoughts about how insignificant she feels in comparison to the vastness of the ocean. "Rachel? What?" I yelped, shaken out of my dark imaginings. "All right, Rachel." "I was going to ask how you're doing," Tobias said. Then after a moment of silence he said, "Big, isn't it?" "Yeah, it's large." The ocean. He's talking about the ocean. They take it in turns to demorph, then remorph. The non-whale members of the group are going for dolphin. I've mentioned that morphs get weird, that things don't happen in some nice, neat, gradual way. Well, this morph was ridiculous. I was growing. My skin had turned leathery, graphite grey. There was a blowhole in the back of my neck. My head was monstrous and out of proportion. But the rest of me was still Rachel, and I had a head the size of Iowa, and about an acre of floating blonde hair. I have to give this book props for the visuals. I mean, we've had some wonderful ones so far. Rachel manages to complete the morph, and just like that, the ocean isn't quite so scary anymore. The whale mind knows the ocean well. She takes a big whale breath and then dives. "Hey Rachel, did you know that not only do sperm whales eat squid, but some people think squid eat sperm whales?" Tobias said helpfully. "No one really knows what giant squid eat," I said, "except for the fact that they are cannibals." Read the room, lads. We made it some more of the way through before you decided it was time to interrupt. I mentioned earlier that one of the reasons that risk was becoming a bit of a problem in these books is they can just demorph and fix all their problems. Not at this depth you can't. In this depth, you demorph, you die. "So Rachel, what's new?" Tobias called, sounding, if possible, even jumpier than I felt. I blurted out the only new thing I could think of. "Well, a guy named TT asked me to go to the movies with him." He sensibly changed the subject, as now is probably not the best time to discuss the nature of their relationship. And instead they talk about how they're going to catch a giant squid. Their echolocation can temporarily stun fish, but who's to say that's going to work in this situation? They don't actually know how long they've been down here, but the pressure is starting to build, even for whales. It was madness. We were blundering about blindly. The sun's rays had never reached this depth, never. If the water had been rock and dirt, it couldn't have been any darker. We were buried alive, buried in water. "Got a surface," Tobias said at last, his thought-speak voice faint, his tone shaken. "Yeah," I agreed. They surface, but not near the others, because obviously they've been travelling down, but not in a straight line, so they don't know where they are. They know they need to go back down and try again, this time with less time, so they agree to split up. "Don't go too far," Tobias called after me. I probably should have listened to him. Swimming in the depths, Rachel spots some phosphorescent fish, and then she spots the giant squid, swimming towards her, ready to attack. And of course, she has swum too far away from Tobias for him to help. The whale instincts at this point start to take over, because the whale does not want to keep the giant squid alive for DNA acquiring purposes. The whale brain just wants to eat the squid. From far away, a faint voice. "Tobias! I think I found the Permalite ship," Tobias called faintly. "Great! I found the squid!" The squid, which currently has Rachel wrapped up, immobilised in its tentacles, ready to drag her down further into the depths. Rachel holds her own until Tobias swims in, but he does normally swoop in, so I appreciate the narrative similarities, and he zaps the squid with some echolocation booms. "Tobias, the fight. Used too much air. I have to get to the surface." "Go," he said tersely. "I'll meet you there." I wanted to stay. I should have stayed. If the squid killed Tobias, no choice. She manages to surface near enough to the others to let them know what's going on, and she readies herself to go back down and help Tobias out, but he is more competent than she has given him credit for, and he swims up with the squid in tow. Tobias and Rachel grab the squid with their whale-ness in their mouths. That's how they do it. And that allows the others to demorph from dolphin and acquire the squid DNA, which obviously calms the squid down long enough for them all to get some good squidness into them. And for those concerned for the squid's safety, Rachel morphs back to whale and drags the squid back down to where the squid would like to be. They have just over 2 hours left to reach the ship and flick the button before the chi in the facility gets found. Can Tobias get them to where he found the ship in time? Time will tell. We get a very intense description of morphing giant squid, which does seem to be Laura's speciality. We've had a fair few of these at this point. The squid instincts are largely focused on eating the other squid. Rachel has a hard time getting control, but Cassie manages to snap her out of it before she eats her friend. Not only are they on a timer for finding the ship and turning the thing off so that the chi aren't discovered, but also they can only go so far down before they'll need to turn around and go up again or risk being trapped as squid forever. And Tobias is having a hard time discovering the ship without echolocation. He really should have stayed in whale morph. Just as they're about to give up, they spot lights in the distance, and it is Yeek controllers swimming towards the Permalite ship. So they find it that way, but it's a bit of a good news, bad news situation. Whoa! I felt, rather than saw, the ground open up beneath me, a vast deep canyon, and there, perched comfortably on a shelf just below the canyon lip, glowing faintly green, was what could only be a ship, which apparently is Permalite themed and kind of looks like an enormous Snoopy. Because the Permalites didn't build things to hurt people, they built things to have fun. I skimmed over this earlier, I didn't mention it. They have received the information from the chi about how to get into the ship, and because the Permalites wanted everyone to be included, their ships adapt to different species when they go in. So when Jake hits the button to open the door, the code is 6, a very difficult code. It opens to reveal a decompression chamber that is big enough for all of these squid. And once they get through the airlock chambery kind of thing, they are carried along in kind of bubbles of water because the ship has adapted to allow the squid to go through. I love the Permalites so much. Lush green and purple grass carpeted the floor, forming patterns, swirls, checkerboards, Picasso-like abstracts and Van Gogh flowers. Trees and bushes in Crayola colours grew in thickets and hushed groves. A sparkling river meandered through the centre of the ship, cascading down into a gentle waterfall and a rippling lake below. Everywhere there were inexplicable, brightly coloured, gaily lit machines that could only be toys of some sort. Beside us, wafting through the air, were things like long feathered snakes. Projected on the arched ceilings far overhead were patterns of clouds and skies like nothing on Earth. After all the thousands of years, it was all still working. Only the dead silence lay as a grim reminder of a species lost. Cheery stuff. They float on over to a big tree that seems to be kind of the bridge, with a big light blinking on it. Axe's water bubble slowly pushed aside Marco's. Perhaps I had better take care of this, Axe said. A cheerful thought-speak voice sang out in our heads. Greetings, friends. We are happy to have you aboard. However, we would not want you to access this panel. It is possible that you might accidentally do yourself harm, and that would be so sad. Axe punched in the number 6. That is the correct code. Our concerns were misplaced. Axe manages to restore the chi's functions, which is great, but then that cheery voice says that all the chi are going to self-destruct in 15 minutes. And because escalating peril, the outside hull of the ship suddenly becomes transparent and reveals a whole load of yeeks outside. He's been absent for a few books, but it is our favourite villain, Visser 3. He sends out a taxon to the edge of the ship and the yeeks manage to crack that oh-so-sophisticated code. And the Animorphs can't even demorph because, yeah, transparent hull wouldn't be good. Oh, dilemma. Oh, drama. Oh, the tension and excitement of it all. Oh, so why do they put the voice descriptions after the thing? Oh, dilemma! Oh, drama! Oh, the tension and excitement of it all! The voice was new, not thought-speak. High, shrill, grating. It's time to meet the new omnipotent asshole. It appeared from behind a tree. It moved on 2 legs, body held forward and balanced by a stubby tail. It walked like a bird or small dinosaur. It did hold its hands up, but they were weak, flimsy things, multiply jointed but obviously designed for very light work or very low gravity. The head was surprising for that almost reptilian body, vaguely human in shape with narrow, looser jaw and wide-set, intelligent, laughing eyes. It was wrinkled, like your thumb after a long bath. Its flesh was dark, almost black. The eyes and mouth were rimmed in green. Not a species Axe recognises. How's Mummy, Marco? Is she alive or is she dead? Does she scream with the yeek in her head? Oh my, I do not like you. All here together, the prune thing mocked. Cassie the hypocrite? I don't believe in violence except when I do. Aximile, the pitiful pale shadow of his dead brother. If only you'd insisted on going with Elfangor, maybe he'd have lived.
Too bad. And Tobias. Ah, yes, Tobias. The boy not really so trapped as a bird, eh? But too gutless to resume life as a human. And Rachel, my very favourite Animorph.
Hello, you've brought a squeaky toy. The thing smiled a lipless smile.
Rachel, do you feel the adrenaline rush of murderous desire? Do you feel the urge to reach out and destroy me? Of course you do. You and I have that in common.
Anytime anyone describes all of them together, I really like to keep it in, just because I find it enjoyable, like, to see how their different, like, categories of character play out. Jake figures it out. This is a creature sent by Cryak. Remember, we met Cryak in a previous book. The creature's name is Drode, a word which in his species language means wild card. If you hear squeaking, I'm so sorry, I cannot take it away from her, or it will be playtime. Drode still has to keep to the rules of the Alarmist and Cryak's games, which means no killing sentient beings, which is good news for that whale, who's just sort of beached for a time. But the Chi apparently don't count, because they're not living things. Not loving Drode.
You're killing us, Tobias said, putting us in an impossible situation. We can't morph here in plain view of the Yix. You know that. You know we can't fight back. That's the same as killing us. Murder.
Nonsense, the Drode said. Yeah, that is what he sounds like.
There's always a way left for you. That's also part of the rules. Now, if you don't find it, well... The creature walked back behind a tree much too narrow to conceal it, and yet it disappeared. They've got no choice. They have to demorph and reveal themselves, or they're going to be stuck as giant squids, completely ineffective in this fight. Ink, they can spray their bubbles full of ink, and then they can demorph and remorph without the Yix ever seeing them as humans. Axe has to go first, as he doesn't actually have to do the remorphing part. His powerful morph is Andalite, and he can buy the others a bit of time. Rachel demorphs in her inky bubble and remorphs as her angriest morph. Grizzly bear. She's joined down on the ground by a tiger, a gorilla, and a wolf. Give Cassie a cooler morph. She's very effective as a wolf. I just want her to have a cooler morph. Facing Axe, a small Yeerk army. Lying on the ground were two Taxons, huge needle-legged centipedes. They'd been sliced open by an Andalite tail blade. The other Taxons devoured them noisily, round red mouths descending to rip and tear their brothers. Visser 3 himself had a gash that had almost removed one of his stalk eyes. Tobias's handiwork. Go Tobias. They charge and battle erupts on this ship that was never designed for conflict. Rachel's wounded on her leg and she collapses down, taking a Hawk-Bajir with her. Their two eyes meet. And suddenly, eerily, we were more than warriors on separate sides. We were each other. And for a moment the world went still. And then he slices her with his wrist blade and she punches him in the face. The battle is raging all around, and suffice to say the Animorphs are not winning. Drode pops out from behind the tree to survey the chaos he has caused, and Rachel vows to take him down. You know, Cryak could use you, Rachel. Why stay with these weaklings? You're already more like us than like them.
A job offer? How nice.
Yes, isn't it? You can survive this debacle. Just do us one small favour. Kill your tiresome cousin. Cryak would like to see that. So would I. Kill Jake.
I laughed. Kill Jake? Nah, I think I'd rather kill you. But she tries to go for Drode and he leaps out of the way, leaving her in the path of some Hawk-Bajir. All hope is lost and there's no one to swoop in, except for... Eric? I blurted in disbelief, even as a Hawk-Bajir leaned over to cut my throat open. That's right, Eric is there to the rescue and he types something in on the control panel. Suddenly, everyone starts moving very slowly. The thought-speak voice of the ship spoke.
Chi self-destruct disabled. We are very sorry to say that the hostility containment program has been activated. What a shame to spoil our lovely time with fighting. Once repairs have been made on all injured parties, we will have to ask you to leave the ship.
Only Eric and Drode can move at a normal pace, and while Drode is there complaining about how the Permalites could have been incredibly successful if they'd only killed a bunch of people, Eric manages to get Tobias out of the grip of a Hawk-Bajir. The Drode leaned close enough to whisper so that only I could hear. I don't think I can do the voice as a whisper, so I'm going to do it normally.
Your friends are all relieved. Are you? Are you happy that peace has been restored? Or don't you itch for the chance to press those deadly claws another 6 inches forward, to tear open that exposed throat? The Drode smiled, cruel, smirking. If you ever find yourself desperate, Rachel, at an end, in need, remember this. Your cousin's life is your passport to salvation in the arms of Cryak.
Lovely stuff. Nice to have options. So the ship's anti-hostility measures pack Visser 3 back into his bug fighter. All the while he threatens to kill everyone, because why wouldn't he? And the Animorphs morph back to Squid and head on out. It had only been 10 minutes from the time we turned off the interference with the Chi till the point when Eric arrived at the ship to interrupt the battle. 10 minutes to get from land to a spot 3 miles underwater, if it had taken 15. The Drode was right about one thing. The Chi had powers that would have made the Permalites masters of the galaxy. They managed to get home and everyone is grounded. Sidebar, I was never grounded, was never used as a punishment for me because introvert things.
I wondered if I should tell Jake about the droid's foul offer, but I decided against it. I knew I would never, ever give in. I knew myself. I did. I knew my limits. I knew.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of the book, that guy from the beginning, because we've come full circle, comes back to ask Rachel out again. He really was cute, and so normal, so not Tobias. He had almost certainly never eaten a mouse. On the other hand, he'd never morphed a sperm whale and gone to the bottom of the ocean while his brain was reeling with barely suppressed terror, just so he could look out for me. I opened my mouth to say sure. Instead I said, "Hey, do you speak English? How many ways do I have to say no?" And the book ends with Rachel morphing bird to go and join Tobias in the sky. "Keep an eye out for me. I always will," he said. Which is a very sweet ending to a very weird book. Do you remember in book 1 when things were just about breaking into people's houses and scanning through their emails, and now we're like, let's go to the bottom of the ocean to talk to a weird prune man who wants us to kill each other? Well, that has been a long time filming, mainly because somebody decided that it would be really fun to interrupt every 5 minutes. Didn't she? She did. Hopefully this has still managed to be edited into something workable. Fingers crossed. Thank you, Editing Judith. As ever, please do follow me on social media if you're that way inclined. Subscribe if you haven't already. Come chat on Discord where we have a dedicated Animorphs channel. You can also do all of those things. That's all you can do, I think. Yeah. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. These videos already take so long to film, Luna. They're gonna take twice as long if you are this itchy. I get pins and needles. Ridiculous. Oh, I should stop because my camera's about to blow. I think you've decided that the thing I do where I clap to get my microphone on means please approach me and make gross noises into the microphone. That's not what it means. Tobias and Rachel grab the squid with their whale arms, which calms the squid. I think she's doing it on purpose. She's just gotta... Oh, Jake figures it out. I'm gonna have to take that away from you. I'm so sorry.